Good morning, Kim 090. I did want to spend some time with you talking about the information that's in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a very mental kind of chapter in Kim 090. They talk about a lot of things that will be important later. It starts off in the very beginning talking about what you need to do to learn chemistry, how to go from your working memory to your long-term memory, and how to organize so that your brain can keep all the information together. Please make sure you read over that stuff. Let me say some of the important things that I noticed from that very first section are that when you're doing your homework, don't try to do all your homework at one time. Take it piece by piece. Work on a little bit every day to make sure that you get the information. The second thing that it mentioned was that you need to overlearn. Make sure you practice and practice and practice and practice. That's the only way you're going to get better at this. You can't just do one problem and think you've got it. You're going to have to do problem after problem after problem so that you can ingrain whatever the concept you're learning is in your brain. Again, with your doing your work and working incrementally, please don't try to work on an hour's worth of work now, take a 5-minute break, work on it for another hour. Work on it in small chunks throughout the day as you are studying and preparing for class. Make sure that you focus on the core skills. Things that your book tells you are important for you, you need to know. Make sure that you really put in an effort. Don't try to just copy somebody else's work or just get to the answer. Remember, the goal is understanding. So make sure you're working on that. Test yourself and test yourself often, and make sure you get a good night's sleep. The next thing that's talked about in Chapter 1 is how you do mental arithmetic. And so Chapter 1 goes through numeracy. And it goes through practicing using mental arithmetic to figure out how to solve your problems. It goes through doing problems where you're adding, you're multiplying, you're dividing, you're subtracting. Make sure that you remember how to do those. And then it moves into like your decimal equivalents. It moves into your decimal equivalents. Those are things that you should know and should commit to memory. They are numbers that you should be familiar with. Please make sure that you use a lot of the tricks you've learned all along as you came up through school, especially like with doing your mental math to simplify your fractions. If you can cross cancel, please do, because it just makes it easier for you to solve the problem. And then it moves into talking about scientific notation or exponential notation. The biggest thing that you need to remember with scientific notation is that that very first number, your coefficient, it has to be a number between 1 and 10. So what does that mean? That means that there can only be one digit to the left of the decimal. So if there's more than one digit to the left of the decimal, you're going to need to move the decimal point so that there's only one digit to the left, and you're going to need to change your exponent. Now, the biggest thing I noticed with scientific notation is that students forget that the exponent does not tell you how many zeros there are in the answer. The exponent tells you how many places to move the decimal. If your exponent is negative, remember that means move the decimal to the left. If your exponent is positive, that means move the decimal to the right. So generally when I think about it, I think about numbers that have negative scientific notation exponents as being really small numbers, and numbers that have positive scientific notation exponents as being really large numbers. So when you make a big number smaller, your exponent is positive. When you make a small number bigger, then your exponent becomes negative. Then in section 1.3, your book moves on to moving the decimal, and how every time you move the decimal, you're actually, if you move it to the left, you're dividing by 10. If you move it to the right, you're multiplying by 10. And so it then talks about how you multiply and divide by 10, 100, or 1,000, and how you convert between exponential notation and standard notation. Give yourself lots of time on this section and practice with this. With your scientific notation in that very next section, section 1.4, it talks about how you do calculations with scientific notation, and it gives you those rules for exponentials. Remember, when you multiply exponentials, if the base is the same, all you do is add the exponents. You multiply the numbers that come in front of the times 10, but you just add the exponents since your bases are 10. When you divide exponents, remember the rule says that you actually subtract your exponents when you divide, and it's the top exponent minus the bottom exponent every time. If you need any help with that, just let me know. But please make sure that when you do your exponential, you understand how to enter scientific notation into your calculator. The first part of the chapter talks about doing the mental math. At the end of the chapter, though, you start using a calculator. If you have a graphing calculator or a scientific calculator, your graphing or scientific calculator will have for you a scientific notation key on there. Please use that scientific notation key when you're doing problems with scientific notation. If you don't have a scientific or graphing calculator, but you do have an iPhone or any other phone that is not a Samsung, like with Samsungs, you have to download another or a scientific calculator. With your iPhone, though, remember, with your rotation lock turned off, you can just turn it sideways, and then you get the EE key that you'll need to enter scientific notation. And so all you do, like if your number was 2 times 10 to the 5th, to enter it on your calculator, you would just type 2, and then you'd press the EE key, and then do your exponent of 5. And then when you press enter, it'll give you that answer. If it's to a negative number, like let's say it was 3 times 10 to the negative 3rd. So 3 times 10 to the negative 3rd, you've got to press 3 EE, you've got to press the exponent, and then you make it negative on a scientific calculator. And it will give you the answer then. But please make sure if you've got a question of how to enter this in your calculator that you let me know. If you send me a picture of your calculator, I can try to work with it to see if I can figure out how to tell you how to enter scientific notation if you're really struggling. But please remember, you do not have to type the times 10. That's an issue that students normally have with that. But as you can see in your assignments for this week, your review quiz on chapter 1 is on page 25. Once you have worked through the problems that are in the chapter, come to the review quiz on page 25, see what you can do there. Make sure you follow the instructions. So when it says don't use a calculator, don't use a calculator for those. Try the mental math stuff. And then you can check the answers for that review quiz on page 27. And if you see that you're having difficulty with those problems, you will know what you need to pay attention to when you go to do your homework. Your homework on Smart Work 5 is going to give you lots of practice with all different kinds of problems from chapter 1. But if there's anything I need to help you with, remember you have an unlimited submission on your homework problems. So you can keep submitting answers as long as you submit them before the due date. It'll allow you to keep trying that problem until you get to the right answer, unless you click give up. Okay, but please don't give up. If there's a question, you don't understand what you're doing, if you don't understand how to type the answers in SmartWork 5, please let me know. I am here to assist with that. Just reach out if there's anything I can do to help. You all have a good rest of the day, and thank you so much for watching this Chapter 1 video.